Hi everyone, welcome to the conversation today where we will be talking about how you should be planning your finances for the next decade. My name is Dipika Jaikishan and I co-run a startup called Basis, BASIS. So Basis is a personal finance platform dedicated to women. There are various investment options out there, whether it's mutual funds, whether it's fixed deposits, whether it's bonds, etc. And as women, many times when it comes to decision making related to our investments, we are not sure what we should be doing. We rely on the experience of our fathers, of our husbands, of our financial agent or advisor who guides us on our investment. While they might be doing what is in our best interest, unfortunately, at times they may not have the best knowledge when it comes to making these investment choices for us. So, at Basis, what we try to do is we first help women learn more about simple things like where should you begin with your savings, how should you plan your monthly budget, and then get into a little more deeper topics such as how should you select your insurance policy, how should you select a mutual fund, what should you know about tax savings. Basis also has a fairly large community of women who post questions related to their money matters and get answers from experts and also from women within the community. So, thank you, Jobs, for her for having me as a part of this conversation today, where we will be talking about how should you be planning your finances for the next decade. I know several of us might have made investments this year, which may have worked out well or not worked out well for us. Or we may have made investments in 2014, which we review now and we realize that they are not working out very well for us. So, what we are going to try and do in today's conversation is help you understand that coming into the next decade, which is 2020 onwards, how should you be approaching your money? And what are some choices you should be making? And what you should be aware of before making those choices? Coming to my first point, I think I get this question from a lot of people saying, I don't have enough to save. First of all, I think that's not the right thing because you can start saving with as little as 100 rupees a month. So there is no lower limit when it comes to saving. Saving or investing is a commitment that you need to make for yourself, for your own financial future. And also, many times I have women come up and say, I don't have any money left at the end of the month. Why should you be saving at the end of the month? Your bills, your expenses all come up in the beginning of the month. Likewise, your savings should also happen in the beginning of the month. I think it's very important that as women we use what our strengths are. For example, budgeting, planning expenses, etc., are all our strengths. So we should be playing to our strengths since managing money or how we should plan stuff related to money is something that comes naturally to women. So I think let's play to our strengths. I think one exercise that you can do is probably re-look at the year 2019 and see what were certain expenses that you made, which now retrospectively, if you think about it, you could have done without. For example, I made some gadget purchases in 2019 and I spent about 15 to 18,000 on those. But now if I look at it, I realize that I didn't actually need those and I don't use them. So likewise, a lot of us might have made certain expenses in the last year, which we now, when we look at those expenses, we will realize we didn't actually need it. I think that's one exercise all of us should do because it will make you aware about what mistakes you should not be making going into the next decade or the next year that is coming up from January. And January, frankly, is a great time to get started on your savings. I know a lot of us try and find excuses, all the possible excuses we can to delay making savings or investments, but January is probably the best time to get started on your savings and investments. I'm also going to be taking some questions on the site. You can drop your questions in the comment section. We have already received some questions from the women in the Jobs for Her community. I will also be answering those questions. A couple of other things. I think it is essential that going into the next decade, each one of us have an investment into a mutual fund. And I will tell you why. So, what you can do is start an SIP or something called a systematic investment plan into a mutual fund. What happens here is based on your own risk. So you can choose, I want to invest in a low risk fund, I want to invest in a high risk fund, I have a financial goal that's coming up 5 years later or 7 years later. I want to save towards that particular financial goal. I think you can really put down your own requirements and based on that, make a choice when it comes to which fund you should be investing in. At Basis, we help you make that choice. But I think it's important because inflation is pretty high, as we all might know. If you just look at the prices of how onions have gotten so expensive, this is not something we anticipated. But yes, it has become expensive. It has affected our monthly budget. So I think we should be keeping inflation in mind and the fact that things will only possibly become more expensive. And my fixed deposits and my recurring deposits will not give me returns which will beat inflation. When I'm making investments, my investments have to beat inflation. Also, very important, relook at your health insurance and life insurance. For those who are not working full time or looking to come back into the workforce, it is very important that you have a comprehensive health insurance. So, first of all, if you have a spouse who is working, please check their insurance provided by their employer if it is adequately covering all the members of the family. Most companies allow you to increase that health insurance that your spouse might have. Separately, also, it's very important that women have their own health insurance policies. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is, of course, the fact that you may not be working full time. Secondly, we have women these days who are making choices like getting married a little later, probably not getting married at all, or so many other scenarios where having not having health insurance can affect us very negatively. As we all might know, one visit to the hospital and there's a dent in our pocket. So things like hospitalization, etc., are pretty expensive. So it's very important to have a health insurance policy in place for that purpose. Likewise, if you are working, it is also important to have a life insurance policy in place. To continue on that note, I'm going to take a couple of questions in between and throw some light on various aspects of these. So, one question that I've got is that as women, we've never been taught to manage our finances even for a month. A decade is a far fetched dream. So, someone who's been raised such, what advice would you give for starters? Baby steps, perhaps. Yes, I totally get you. As women, we have not been taught to manage our finances even for a month. Unfortunately, financial planning or learning about money is not a part of our academic curriculum in school or in colleges. And even at home, usually we have somebody managing the money, which is great. But as women, it's very important we learn to manage our expenses. Like I said, step one, relook at 2019. look at expenses that you made which you think now were not necessary. That really throws a lot of perspective on how you should be planning your expenses and your money going forward. An exercise which I personally did and I would also advise you to do is probably relook at your expenses for the last 3 months. So look at October, November, December, and look at the pattern of your expenses. October, November, December are usually months where expenses are usually higher because of festivals or things like that. But yeah, relook at what your expenses and what your income patterns were for these 3 months to understand what are your fixed monthly expenses, what are your variable monthly expenses. Fixed monthly expenses are something that we have to fund no matter what. If I have to pay rent, if I have to pay my bills, whether I have a job or not, I still have to continue paying my rent. I have to still continue paying my bills. I still have to continue paying for my children's education. So those are fixed expenses where we should be looking at. But there are also variable expenses, which in dire conditions we can avoid making those expenses or financing those needs. So I think one step to get started, like I said, revisit your expenses for the last 3 months. What you can possibly do, like I said, baby steps to managing your money, since you've probably never done it before, is to start with a small SIP. So start with an SIP as low as 200 or 500 rupees per month. Before starting an SIP or investment in a mutual fund, understand more. By default, all of us think that all mutual funds are risky. Mutual funds will make me lose money, etc., which is all completely wrong. There is a mutual fund suitable for every person and suitable for every need. So on the Basis app, you can actually go through our 10 learning modules. They are quick, fun ways of learning a little more about money before making your choices. I think, yes, since you mentioned we've not been taught to manage our finances, you have to take the lead yourself. You have to teach yourself. There are tools like Basis and other platforms also available where the first step you can do is, and the first step you can take is start learning. The whole idea is to learn, and nobody's going to come and hold your hand and take you through that. Start learning, start making a basic investment through an SIP, understand your health insurance policy. If you have a certain life insurance policy, understand what you already have. One step of going forward is also understanding where you are currently at. Another question that I have got is, what are the current best modes of investment for an Indian nuclear family? I think that's a great question. Maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago, we all come from the joint family system of living, where joint families by itself were an insurance. If something were to happen to one earning member of the family, there would be somebody else who would contribute and would play a role. If in case there was a loss of life, etc., finances were taken care of and everything was sorted for us. Unfortunately or fortunately, most of us have now moved into a nuclear family method of living. And I can give you my own example. So my husband and I live on our own. We live in a rented apartment, which means that no matter what, we have to ensure that our rents are paid every month. It's only the two of us, so all expenses are borne by the two of us, which means we have to ensure if we have fixed expenses, those have to be paid for every month. One exercise that you have to do as a nuclear family is firstly maintain an emergency fund. So if you know that my monthly expenses are usually, including my rent, etc., are usually 15 or 20,000 every month. First step you should be doing, first investment you should be doing is to ensure you have 3 months worth of expenses kept aside. So if your monthly expenses is 20,000, first investment you should be making is to build that fund of 60,000, which is 3 months of your expenses, so that if something were to happen, you know you have this money and you know you can still pay your bills and you don't have to worry about any of that. As a nuclear family, the importance of financial goal planning increases. So if you are, in a nuclear family, you have kids, you don't have kids, it is important that you put down certain financial goals. Whether it is the fact that we want to take a holiday every 2 years, that holiday will cost us 1 lakh rupees, or my child is 5 years old now, 13 years from now, I have to pay for her higher education, or the fact that right now you may be 35-year-old and at 55 you want to retire. So put down 5 financial goals and prioritize 3. So when you put down 5 goals, you will realize that there are 3 which are most important to you, and start working towards those goals. Also, when you are doing that exercise, realize that what you're putting down as a goal, that thing will get expensive year on year. So use the fact that inflation plays a role in that goal planning. On basis, you can actually plug in the number and see how much it get expensive by. But otherwise, also you can do simple calculations and see, okay, 1 lakh rupees today will cost me 1,10,000 next year. It becomes expensive by 10%. Education becomes expensive by 12%. So goal planning is extremely essential to a nuclear family. Also, what is very, very critical is the fact that you are adequately covered for insurance. Like I said before, joint families by themselves were a system of they were a system of insurance, but nuclear families now need to have insurance in place. Your health insurance, your life insurance, your spouse's health insurance, your spouse's life insurance should be adequate. Also, simple things like please go and check on your online net banking if you have updated a nominee. It's very important to have a nominee in all your investments, including in your bank account. Many times, all of us in a hurry miss filling these basic details. So, as a nuclear family, it is very important to have your nominations in place. Also, it is important to talk about money. So, have conversations about money with your spouse. I know it's a sensitive topic, but if it is a nuclear family, if it is only three, four, five of you as members, it's important that you talk about money matters. Also, very slowly, depending on the age of your child, start teaching them the right lessons when it comes to money. Start involving them in simple decision making, probably when you take them out grocery shopping or things like that. Help them by asking them questions, asking them, do we need this? This costs X amount. Should we be buying it? So you can actually teach children lessons about money in very basic fashion early on in life. Another question I have got is, I am a working woman, and typically every month my salary goes to my savings bank account, from which, after drawing a certain amount, I accumulate the rest, which is a pretty sizable amount. Then I move that into an FD. That whole process takes me a long time. Can you suggest a better, quicker way to make most of my savings? Again, I think that's a great question. The fact that your money is lying in a savings bank account is putting your money to waste, because, as we know, our savings bank account gives us very, very low returns on the amount that you leave in the bank. That savings bank amount interest is also taxable, so be mindful of that. And by the time you accumulate the funds and then you move it to the FDs, it could take a long time. I think a very smart thing for you to do is start putting that money through an SIP, through a systematic investment plan. So for example, every month you are saving 10,000 after all your expenses. What you can do is say, okay, I want to do a 5,000 rupee SIP in a liquid fund where there is no risk, where that money is available for me at any point in time, and that works very much like your FDs, etc. And the balance 5,000, you say, okay, I think I don't need this money for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, and you invest that money in long term mutual funds in a way that your money is growing. Your money is not lying stagnant in a savings bank account or in a fixed deposit. You're putting your money to use. I would advise you to go to the Basis website. It's www.getbasis.co, or you can download the Basis app. It's just BASIS. Very simple concepts like these of how should you put your savings bank money to use are dealt with. Very simple concepts. How should you be making small changes in your life to accumulate more money or make your money work hard for you? Yeah, open to taking more questions. Okay, so I have a question from Hamida. Hamida's question is it necessary to hire a financial advisor, and what is the role of a financial advisor? So, Hamida, I've been working in the space of personal finance for 12 years now. Uh, there are the pros and cons of having a financial advisor. The main problem that arises with a financial advisor is the fact that you are not learning. You are still handing over the money to a financial advisor who's managing the money for you. So, if tomorrow something were to happen, you're still dependent on the financial advisor and you do not know much more about your investments. So, I think it might make sense to put a plan in place, but take those simple steps on your own. Also, there is several times with financial advisor, there is a bias. They recommend investments that they are comfortable with. Several times they recommend investments where they are making more money on those particular investments. So be a little mindful of those things before you make those choices. Yeah, so I've answered Snehal, Shilpa, and Ramya's question. Uh, I have a question from Deepa. When in savings mode, my husband and I tend to always pick safer modes of investment like debt mutual funds and FDs when compared to equity or equity mutual funds, and we lose out on higher margins. I feel like we should take risks sometimes in order to earn better returns. What would you do? Deepa, a disclaimer, I am a very high risk investor. Most of my investments are in high risk investments like equity mutual funds, but I have done that after putting down my requirements. I know that what I need for next 1 year, what I need for next 3 years, what I need for next 5 years, and then I have invested the amount in equity mutual funds for the long term, which are high risk investments. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think FDs or debt mutual funds in the longer term can give me a 10 or 11 or a 15% return. The only place that I can get those return is by participating in the economy, participating in the growth of India by investing in equity mutual funds. I have a question from Divya Shankar, which is as a freelancer, what are the best ways in which I can save that will also give me tax benefits? So, Divya, I know as a freelancer, there is no steady source of income. There will be months where you will be paid out all your project money. There will be months where there is no money at all. So, what I think you should start doing is start, for example, when you get your project money and you realize you have 5 or 10 or 15,000 left, move that money to a liquid fund. When that accumulates to 30 or 40 or 50,000, whatever amount you think is comfortable for you can move that money to a tax saving mutual fund. So, a tax saving mutual fund is a great place to invest. Not only does it give you tax savings, it also gives you an allocation to equity funds where there is a growth over the long term. So, as a freelancer, you know that there is a lot of uncertainty in your income. So, it might make sense to consider investments where your money is growing over the long term. So, Hamida has two other questions. What exactly does financial planning mean, and what does it relate to in terms of planning finance, does it relate to only personal planning like retirement and other things like investing? So, Hamida, I think financial planning is very comprehensive. It's not just related to investment planning, it's not just related to retirement planning. While those are very crucial elements of financial planning, it is also things like, I am at a certain place in my career, I want to earn more. How do I upskill myself? So platforms like JobsForHer, etc., help you do that. How do I upskill myself? How do I earn more money? How do I negotiate a better salary? So these are skills which also these are parts of our life which also are related to our financial planning. So your question is also, how can one invest money for future gains, and what are investment options and investment plans? Suggest some specifically for those who are single. So I think for single, like I mentioned earlier, single people are in a very different situation where I think it's great that you're completely self-reliant, but it is also important that you plan your investments very sensibly, put your insurances in place, start an SIP, uh, put down small goals. A first financial goal you can have is an emergency fund. Moving on from an emergency fund, you can say, I want to take a trip in 2023. That trip is going to cost me 3 lakh rupees. How do I plan for that? And start working backwards to see where you need to save for that. Or you say, I want to retire in 2040. I need X amount of money. How much should I start saving now towards that particular goal? So I think for single people, for single women especially, planning your financial goals is very important. So Divya, I completely agree with your husband when it comes to children's higher education. You need to invest in equity, and along with that, you need to have adequate insurance. So FDs are a no-no for that purpose, but I think equities and adequate insurance are very important so that in case something were to happen, you know that the amount is going to come from the insurance for your family. So I have a similar question from Prativa, whose question is mutual fund a good option? How to plan better for your child's future financially? So Prativa, mutual fund is a good option, but it is only a good option after you understand exactly what you're doing when it comes to your money. I think it's important that each one of us make the right investment choices after we understand. So what I'm also going to do is in the answer, I'm just going to link the Basis app. I think you need to read up and learn a little more about whether it's mutual funds, whether it's insurance, whether it's fixed deposits, and make an informed choice when it comes to your investments. In Basis, we are trying to do that. I'm just going to spend 1 second and show you what the Basis app looks like. So I think, yeah, this is visible to all. So on the Basis app, we have learning modules where women can start learning about basics of investments. What does money mean to you? Save, basics of investing, understanding risk, understanding returns, various other things. We also have a community where you can start asking questions and you can start having conversations related to money. I'm going to link that down for you. And yeah, if you want to download it, you can just look for Basis, BASIS, on the Play Store. And the second option here, Basis India's financial platform for women, you can start using it and exploring it. So thank you everyone for your questions. In case I have missed out on any questions, I will be responding to them in the comment section. This was a great conversation. Please start learning more about your money and making right informed investment choices for yourself.